back on.
After all the insults and the jabs the president has thrown at a number of these leaders, I just wonder where that leaves us. What is America's standing with its allies?
Well, Anna, it's very sad. For 70 years, presidents in our country, on a bipartisan basis, Republicans and Democrats, provided leadership for the world. And we built a world order that was stable, that respected American values. And in a single term, this president is trying to destroy all of that, destroy that credibility. I mean, he's blowing up the economic system with these irrational tariffs on China that are frankly hurting Germany's economy. That's one of the reasons Germany may be going into recession. He has no regard for what we need to do on climate change. It's just, frankly, it's embarrassing.
This week, the president also floated the idea of letting Russia back into the G7, although Russia hasn't necessarily done anything to get back in. They were originally kicked out when they annexed Crimea back in 2014. That situation hasn't changed. Do you think Russia should be let back into the G7?
They should only be let back in after two conditions are met. First, they need to commit to stop interfering in elections around the world, not just in the United States, but in many European countries. And second, they need to stop the annexation of Ukraine. Those two conditions need to be very clear. When they meet them, then we can consider having them re-enter the G7 and make it a G8.
I'm sure it's not lost on you that it's all coming as the U.S. and Russia are trading barbs following a U.S. missile test just last week, and Russia responding, saying it will respond with its own test. I mean, is this a modern-day arms race? Is that what we're looking at?
Well, the Trump administration has created that situation. There was no need for them to withdraw from the INF Treaty. That was a treaty that President Reagan negotiated in 1987 with Mikhail Gorbachev. Trump tore that treaty up. Now we're testing missiles which aren't necessary for a strategic interest and escalating an arms race. What we ought to be doing is getting back to the negotiating table with Russia and China and re-entering an INF treaty that includes China.
But critics said it was outdated. A lot of people on both sides of the aisle politically said Russia wasn't abiding by that treaty. China wasn't a part of that treaty. So what was the point?
So you have effective diplomacy, and you have people like William Perry or George Shultz or even Jim Baker on your team who can help negotiate for American interests to have an INF treaty that would have enforcement against Russia and to include China. It's easy to blow up the system, which is all that this administration wants to do. It's much harder, Anna, to build something. And we painstakingly built things in this country for the world. And I would hope that the next president will have a team of competent experts who understand diplomacy, statesmanship, and foreign policy, and will be able to negotiate the types of treaties that President Reagan, President Carter, and so many other American presidents have.